Fox News Alert and more now on the breaking news from the top of the hour and a growing controversy for the Obama administration. A well-known public advocacy group called Common Cause is now calling for the president to shut down his team of former campaign officials who are supposed to be working to push his agenda, but are now accused of trying to sell direct access to the president if you write a big enough check. The controversy got a whole lot of attention after the New York Times wrote about a fundraising pitch from the group, this offshoot of what was the president's campaign team, that suggested a donation of $500,000 or more would get you time with the president. A whole lot of time, in fact, at least 4 times a year. Here is White House spokesman Jay Carney fielding questions on it yesterday.
So $500,000 does not guarantee you access to the president?
This is an independent organization. I would point you to that organization for how it raises its money. It has said quite clearly, distinguishing it from other organizations, that it will disclose its donors. But I would direct your questions to them about how they. Correct, and I would point you to that organization.
Thanks,
Peter.
Jay.
So the New York Times going to correct that part?
When the president ran in 2007, he used this exact language. He said the cynics, the lobbyists, and the special interests who turned our government into a game only they can play, they write the checks and you get stuck with the bills. They get the access while you get to write a letter. Doesn't this in many ways, though, create a situation that does blur that line of exactly what he was campaigning against in 2007, that he couldn't communicate to those people, even though independent, to say to them, this isn't the way my administration wants to work?
The president has been very clear what his agenda is. This is an independent organization that supports the policy initiatives that the president puts forward, not unlike a variety of so-called, 501c4 organizations.
And he went on from there. Joining me now to discuss it, Brad Blakeman, the former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush, and Marjorie Clifton, who's a former consultant to the Obama campaign and CEO of Clifton Consulting. So he says there are lots of organizations, like the NRA, for example, that exist in part to push agendas. So this organization is like the NRA in that respect. It is unlike the NRA in the respect that it is made up of President Obama's campaign team. That's just true. Every news organization has reported that. And now we have the New York Times reporting that if you cut this group a check of $500,000 or more, you will get 4 meetings with the president. You will get other White House meetings. And the question, Marjorie, is whether this is directly contradictory to the promises Barack Obama made when he was running for office. There are ethics rules in Washington that try to stop. Their whole purpose is to insulate the government officials from outside influence. We don't want big-pocketed individuals from getting access to our lawmakers or our president so they can buy a position. And is that what's happening here?
Well, I have to tell you, the optics don't look good. I mean, what Jay Carney was trying to highlight is this is a separate entity, and unfortunately what we're seeing here is what I think is one of the most unjust issues in terms of our democratic system, and that money does talk in Washington regardless of what party you're in. It buys you access and influence. I mean, look at the way that presidents campaign. If you're one of the Koch brothers are giving $1 million to Romney's campaign, you got a 3-day retreat with him. If you're in Hollywood, you got a dinner with Barack Obama if you gave $1 million to his campaign. So, I mean, we see this on both sides of the aisle. It absolutely doesn't look good to have the president speaking openly about this very issue and then seeing this kind of unfolding in the way it is. But unfortunately, it's business as usual. It's what we've seen in the past and we're seeing again. I think, again, a lot of the details of how this works, we don't know. But I would say, in my experience, advocacy groups all over Washington and all over the country, money buys you a seat at the table. It buys you a voice on an issue, and I think that's what you're seeing here.
Brad, you worked for President Bush. How does this differ, if at all, from the kinds of activities that Marjorie just outlined that all of these presidents do?
If any member of the Bush administration, especially senior officials, past or present, either in the campaign or in the White House, had created this organization and it implicated the president and basically scheduled the president to attend third-party functions, the Justice Department would be looking into this. This is immoral, it's unethical, it's illegal for an outside organization with inside influence to obligate the president with money. The condition is money. $500,000 gets you meetings with the president at the White House is the language that they used. Jay Carney should have referred this to the Justice Department for an investigation. They should have cease and desist letter should have went out from the White House counsel to this organization. And look at Common Cause, not exactly a conservative group. left now is moving against the president, because this is cronyism at its finest. This is exactly what you'd expect out of a Chicago political hack machine, now that the president is running under the White House and telling corporations and the richest individuals in America, if you want influence from the Obama administration, you can't go through the front door, you have to go through the back door through my aides.
Common Cause,
outrageous.
Common Cause said in the interview with the New York Times, quote, "It just smells. The president is setting a very bad model." Setting up this organization. And now, well, interestingly, though, Marjorie, Jay Carney, when he was first asked, okay, are you selling access to the president? Does $500,000 get you a meeting with the president? He said no. But then he went on to talk about how, well, this organization does a lot of work and pushes the president's agenda, and it's totally independent. And the president regularly meets with, individuals who support his agenda.
And it is true. I mean, absolutely, the president is going to meet with organizations that do support causes that they care about, in the same way that they have to take meetings with the NRA and other groups that don't necessarily support the agenda. That's how Washington works in terms of being a member of Congress or being president of the United States. So I think the distinction he was trying to make is, no, $500,000 does not buy you a meeting with me. Again, it's an independent entity, and I think they're looking into what exactly was promised to these donors, because it does smell fishy. I'm not going to deny that. But, I mean, Brad, as you know, as part of the Bush administration, $250,000 to the Bush Library got you an audience with the president as well. And, I mean, again, it's a different situation, but it does buy access.
There's a big difference. You're talking about a library post-presidency, after the presidency.
Actually, it was fundraising before.
And well, wait a second. You're talking about access to the president to build his library. And the access was not while he was president on policy. The 501c4s and 3s that were created for the Bush Foundation, the Bush Library, have everything to do with an educational benefit and a charity. This 501c4 created by the Obama administration is to push his policy, and you have to give $500 grand in order to get access to the president on his policy agenda.
Here's what I want to ask you. Here's what I want to ask you, because that reporter, and with apologies to that male reporter, because I don't know who asked that question we just listened to, but it was. No, it wasn't Major. Somebody's in my ear. Somebody was asking the question that we just listened to, and the quote from the president. From 2007, President Obama, then Senator Obama, was, remember that senator? Remember that guy, Barack Obama, who was running for office back in 07 and 08, and we're talking about influence in Washington and how this is wrong, and we need change, and we need hope. And he said, they write the checks and you get stuck with the bill. They get the access while you get to write a letter. They think they own this government, but we are here today to take it back. Marjorie, I mean, it's like, you couldn't write it. They get the access while you get to write a letter. They write the checks and you get stuck with the bill. I mean, if this reporting is true, that's exactly what he was complaining about.
Oh, no question. And I mean, again, this, I think, speaks to a lot of the reforms that we need as a government as a whole, is a lot of this campaign finance reform and things that he was talking about, and unfortunately are the very things that are driving his own campaign. And honestly, I think that there's a lot of good politicians, again, on both sides of the aisle, that care a lot about this and see this as a problem. But, who's willing to actually step up and make this their cause? That's the bigger issue, because it does fund their campaigns. It does keep them in office.
There's so many loopholes. I mean, you're telling me, Brad, that during the Bush administration, there was no way, if you donated enough, that you wouldn't get access to the president.
No,
that doesn't seem plausible.
No,
it seems like all these administrations do it.
It is true. No, look, again, what the Democrats are famous for is, when they're steeped in crisis, is look for some other diversion. I can tell you, when I was at the White House, when I was in the campaign, there was no such entity, third-party entity, which advertised a dollar amount for access to the president. It just didn't happen. And if somebody did do it in the name of the president, they would have been, A, fired, B, investigated, and at most, charges being brought by a law enforcement official with competent jurisdiction. And when the left starts raising up against the president, you know something is terribly wrong.
Before I let you go,
the appearance of selling the president.
Before I let you go quickly, Marjorie, Jim Messina, who's the guy running this group that's, allegedly offering this money, he's a bigwig. He was the guy, right? I mean, he's the guy who ran the president's campaign.
Sure, and I mean, again, you see this on both sides of the aisle.
No, but listen, my point is that Jim Messina comes to you. It may be different than an outside group that has no connection to the White House. Jim Messina comes to you and says, I'm telling you, 500 grand gets you 4 meetings a year with the president. You believe him.
Oh, absolutely. No, again, I'm not questioning that there is some questionable behavior and things that need to be looked into. I think there are. But what I am saying is, it's not very different. Even from an optics standpoint, and Brad, while I totally respect you and I appreciate what you're saying, I don't think it's entirely true to say this is not something that happens on both sides of the aisle. And both sides of the aisle.
Not in this particular way, I think is Brad's point. I think his point is not in this particular way. You know what? We got a lot of work to do in Washington. Thank you both so much.